Hello, Melissa. How are you? I'm about to do a one-on-one with a guy named JP here on maybe after he and I talk, if you want to join in, you can get a third person. I just wanted to, I've been having fun with these one-on-one things just because they're a little bit easier for me to handle. But I will see how far we get with this. So this guy's named JP. He lives in New York City, I think, or Long Island, or somewhere on the East Coast. And I met him. I'll wait till he shows up here. Bye. Well, I'm having fun still. I had fun doing some watercolors yesterday while watching a movie. It was a little hard because the movie was subtitled, so I had to look up to read what was going on. And but I was able to do some very, very quick watercolor drawings using just two colors, purple and gold. And I'm going to do some more of those today, I hope. But I also have other jobs I need to do, which I will do as well. Oops. I don't know whether I took an image of the tracking number for your piece, but for the thing I mailed you, but you should be getting it in a day or two. Well, are you in the room, JP? Oh, you made it over. Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to copy a link. Copy. I'm pasting it here. Paste. So you click on that link, JP, and you will be brought to a link on Safari or Chrome, and then you follow the prompts and enter the studio. What you have to do, though, is close or mute the window that has YouTube in it. Otherwise, we'll get a bunch of echoes. So, and then we'll start having fun. And I'll make some sort of introduction to you that may be factual or may not be. You'll correct me when I'm done. I had meant to make myself look a little bit prettier for this broadcast, only because it's one that is more focused, but I ended up getting sidetracked by emails, so I'm still wearing my pajamas, and this is a sweater my mother knitted for herself, which is about twice as big on me as it needed to be. Did you see the link? Here's the link again. Do you not see that link, JP? If you don't see it, I'm going to provide it to you in two parts. Because sometimes, I don't know, links don't always work, maybe. Paste. So the first part is StreamYard.com, https StreamYard.com, and then it's followed by this. After the com is the slash and then these numbers. So it's StreamYard.com, and then you type in //8VD2NVGXT. These things normally show up and people can see them and click on them, but if you can't, some people can't for some reason, and I don't know why. I may have a phone call here for a second, so I'm not going away. I just make it a quick call here. Do you see, yes or no, JP, do you see the half of the link I sent you? Hello. Hi, how are you? It's okay. One day at a time, yeah. The big question about whether my brother wants to buy the house has not been addressed yet, because it involves more emotions than we want to deal with right now. So he's okay. Oh, I've got. Can you tell me what it is you need? Just a minute, JP. Just a minute. What is it that you are looking for me to talk to me about? Okay, I'm coming back on the 30th of this month, so of March. I'll be back in 9 days or 11 days or whatever the 30th is. So we'll have time to talk about things there. I really haven't done anything with respect to it yet, but I will be posting things on the Facebook page for them so they can start getting their act together. Yeah, yeah. 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 Okay. So I'm in charge of, okay. Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. I, I'm sorry, what is the date in May you said? Um, eh, yeah, and then my show goes up on what? Okay. I'll be here. I'll be there. I'll be there. So, yeah, I know. I didn't know the dates, but I may have to come back here for some, a long weekend or something between the time I go back and the time, in maybe early May or something, but not that I want to. I'm hoping I don't need to. Anyway, I need to get to this other person here, so we'll talk later. Great. Bye. Bye bye. I'm sorry, JP.
No apology needed. Thanks
Uh,
for the invitation. This is
uh,
fun.
this and it will become even more fun in short order. I see you have, or maybe I didn't know that you had a COVID beard, or maybe you just have a beard, and you're
That's
just.
you hit the nail on the head. This is the COVID beard. I
Yes.
figure this is the window of time where I can have the awkward phase of the beard
Okay.
under a mask and no one knows.
Um, I'm. You must have a very big mask if that beard can fit in one. It's
Not anymore. I've been researching. There's a company that makes a beard that's a mask that seals up here
okay.
and seals down here.
I see.
So you can have the beard in, but I just kind of deal. I've got a bit of a shelf
Ah, see.
from the mask. I'll
I
tell you
see.
what, if it keeps the people around me safe, we'll roll with it.
Okay. Well, let's hope that your germs won't make people sick in the first place. But I understand the
For
precaution.
sure, yeah. I got my
Oh, you
my
got.
first dose yesterday.
Oh, good. And how did
When we were speaking, that's what I was coming back from.
Okay. What? How come you get to get it and I'm an old man and I can't get mine yet?
I'm a teacher
Oh,
by
okay.
day,
Okay.
and
By
so
day.
we're on campus all 5 days.
A teacher by day and a young man by night, and I'm just a man all the time. Um, well, um, and you're in Long Island
So
or
I'm out in Jersey.
Jersey? Okay. And
Yeah.
school is in Jersey too,
Say it
or
again.
is your school you teach in Jersey as well?
Yeah,
Or okay,
yeah. Just a few minutes away.
oh, good.
It's a good time. All things told, the kids are pretty good with it. Our parents, thankfully, have been really good about it.
Oh,
So yeah, we haven't had a case in 3 weeks.
and
Um,
what age group do you teach?
so I teach secondary, so 9 to 12.
9 to 12. Okay. Um, well, good. So I met you. I'm introducing what I do with these things is I keep them up so other people can learn from our vast knowledge that we have here. Um, and so I like to introduce you or give a history of how we know each other, our long history of about a week. I met JP on Pen Friends UK, and his name is what? What is his real name? Pen Friends UK. What's his real name? Andrew. His name is Andrew. And Andrew and I later spoke side by side like this, and I think you might have even. I don't think you joined that one. Maybe not. But I enjoyed what you were saying, typing in Andrew's broadcast on Instagram, and I thought I need to know this person. So now I do, at least to this degree. I'm an artist and calligrapher and pen collector, and for nearly 40 years, a pen salesman. It used to be almost my full-time job at one point, income-wise. And I would sell pens to students at Harvard and Yale and artists and calligraphers. This is long before the interweb was invented, and eBay didn't exist, of course. And if you wanted to find an old pen, you had to kill off one of your grandparents that didn't that somehow had an old pen, or go to antique shops or go to flea markets early in the morning, and no one bothered to do that except for me and some other pen collectors. So I had a really big following of pen users. I would fix them up and sell them to artists and calligraphers and students, and in some cases authors. And in recent decades, I've been focusing more on selling pens to calligraphers and artists. And I've been ignoring, to some degree, the collectors, because my pens are generally more modest than they want. And but the journalists, the journal keepers, the writers and the authors and the poets and the people that use pens to convey thoughts rather than just calligraphing some poem or something, or are what I don't really know you kind of people. So tell me what it is about pens that you like, and why do you need more than one, for God's sake?
Right, right. So the way I got into fountain pens, first of all, thanks for the introduction to how our paths crossed.
Yeah, yeah,
Still getting the framing
yeah. No,
on this app down. I got into fountain pens. I was so my first fountain pen. I had just gotten accepted to my master's program, and I moved from the Midwest out to the East Coast to attend. And I met a friend of mine at a mall outside of Philly, the King of Prussia mall, where it kind of has its own zip code. It's massive. And we went to a fancy pen store, and I said, you know what? I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to get one of those old style fancy pens. And first, I didn't know what questions to ask, so I didn't know what I didn't know, let alone what I needed to. And I walked out with a Pilot Custom 74.
Okay.
So I kind of jumped right into the deep end on that one. And I used that pen and a bottle of Pilot has this warm gray ink, Kirasami. And I used that bottle of ink, and that's my master's. I got my master's on that. So then when I got into a PhD program, the workload kept building and building and building. I was publishing and doing my coursework and teaching for the school. And I needed a way to make work interesting again. So there's this lovely, warm, welcoming community of pen folk. I would count you as one of them. Who just come on in, sit down. I'll show you what I know. I'll ask you what I don't, and we'll have a cool conversation. And I just kind of I stay for the people, and the pens kind of get me started in work when I don't want to get work done. Because it's fun for the first 30 minutes, and then I can transition into another mode like a word processor or something.
I see. Okay. I'm a person who, I do have a few modern pens, but most of the pens I have are vintage, meaning 1960 or earlier. And during sort of the time when I started selling pens, there weren't that many modern pen makers. There was Pilot, and there was Namiki, and there was Montblanc, and there was Schaefer and Parker, and that was about it. There might have been a couple more. Waterman, I guess, was around. And all of the modern pens that were manufactured and sold in the United States, one of the things that they were famous for was skipping, because the feeds were so niggardly and stingy, and the little channel was so tiny that if you wrote normally at a normal speed and you're pausing and you're thinking about what you're writing, I think that they would be fine. But if you're doing calligraphy, which requires speed, or drawing sketchily, which requires speed, I always found that they skipped. And I thought, well, these pens are useless. And I understand why they skipped because of the feed. And I understand why manufacturers didn't make feeds that had a lot of ink right there at the bow where it's needed, because you could do this and ink would fly all over the room. So I understood why manufacturers didn't do that. I'm happy though. I mean, so I never got into the modern pens, the more recent pens. So I'm an old pen purist in that way for the most part. But I'm very happy to see that modern pens work better than they did back in the 80s. So you mainly have modern pens according to your pick?
Mainly I have modern pens.
Do you have,
I have, so I'm a tinkerer just
yeah,
by habit.
yeah,
And I wanted to figure out how this stuff works.
yeah,
So I went down to the local antique shop and I picked up an old fountain pen. I didn't really know anything about it. Now it's an Esterbrook, one of the older
yeah,
purse pens, like the small
yeah,
ones. And looked up a couple videos online on how to take the thing apart,
hmm,
and took it apart, repaired, like cleaned out all the bits of the sack, learned how to shave down and replace the J bar inside,
yeah,
which for me was really fun. I fixed this and now it kind of works. So I've got a handful of Esser books that I like.
hmm,
I have a Parker Vac whose diaphragm blew a couple weeks
yeah.
ago. So we're in the process of finding a doctor for that.
Well, there are doctors for those. I used to fix them, and I probably can if there was a gun to my head. But I sold all of my vacuumatic parts uh, to a friend in California because both he and I uh, purchased a company that repaired pens, a storefront that had thousands and thousands of parts, and he recently bought thousands and thousands of parts from another collector who had done the same thing. And then I said, well, these thousands of parts aren't doing me any good. So I sold them all to him. So he now has them. But there are people that can fix those diaphragms. Back in the olden days, they weren't meant to be repaired. They were meant to be replaced with a new diaphragm system, not just the rubber part, but the whole
Okay.
plungy bit. And so you would get that entire mechanism from Parker, which is a lot easier than trying to put just the sack, the rubber part, on the old 60-year-old, 70, 80-year-old. God, older than me, Pierre.
Yeah, I dated mine. I think it's because Parker uses those dots,
Yeah,
right? I think I'm the middle of 45.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's 75 years old. I'm 64, so that's 10 years older than me, and that's uh, way too long for anything to live, let alone a pen. But pens,
Nah, nah. You kidding me? You're showing me how to use YouTube and live stream.
yeah. But anyway, the idea of these older pens are they will last forever. As you know, the rubber sack goes, and occasionally a plastic part of the pen might decay. There's a couple of plastics they built back then that are kind of brittle, and they look perfectly fine, and the next day you look at it and it might be just dust, pretty red dust on your table rather than this what used to be a pen. And so what I'd like to do, and you don't have to accept this publicly, but it's no obligation to you. I'd like to send you, if I can, a couple of old pens that have gold nibs, not steel nibs like Esterbrook's, but actual gold nibs. And I've got a few here that I would love to have you try, just to see
Sure.
how different they are from what modern ones are. The difference I see in vintage nibs to modern nibs are vintage nibs are very blank. They're very fine. They're very broad. They're very flexible. They're very something. They can be compared to modern, what modern manufacturers say is flexible. A vintage pen can be that flexible, or it could also be very flexible by comparison. And again, the modern pen companies don't want to sell something that's going to feel scratchy or be at all fragile. And a flexible nib is by its nature more fragile than a stiff one. So they don't make them as fragile as they could perhaps make them. So the only way to get a pen that will do sort of what these older pens do is to get an older pen. But so
Yeah, I'd welcome it on the condition that I can use them to. I'll write you a letter in
yeah,
response with them.
well, you're going to write a letter and send them back too.
That's the key.
If you don't want to buy them, but if you want to buy them, I'd love to let you at least try them out, and
Please.
Because I think what you'll find is really the range of them can be much more fun. But now, are you able to show your desk with that camera? Are you on your iPad phone or?
So I'm on my iPad, but I'm not at my desk. My partner's she's an opera singer, and she's giving a voice lesson right now in the study.
Okay. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you what I do with.
I can show you what I have out here in terms of
Okay.
my journaling and what have you.
Okay.
I can't show you the whole desk.
Okay, that's fine. I want to show you though how I am doing what I'm doing. First of all, I'll turn on some light, and then I'm going to turn the camera so it's aiming the other way on my iPad by pressing this button, camera, and then this desk I'm sitting at is has this sort of shelf built in. So I'm setting this on the shelf, moving, trying not to trip over all the cords that are power cords.
Yeah, safety first.
And then I can sort of show you, how I write. And I love your writing. Your writing is very, it's almost architectural. It's sort of
Thank you.
More horizontal than vertical. The letters fit in that shape rather than this shape,
right,
or even circular. It has a really fast velocity going that way. And you tend to, if I remember correctly, you tend to sort of have this staccato printing sort of thing. Am I?
Yeah, you're spot on.
Describing it okay?
Yep.
And yet sometimes you write differently. You have different pens. You have pens that are broader, and maybe how do the pens that you have, and you can show me some if you'd like now, by just holding them up. How do you find you have a thought in your head and a need to write something, and you go to your desk and you see these 5 pens in a row? How do you decide? Let's just pretend they're all filled with the same ink. Do you immediately go toward one pen because the thoughts you're having are unclean thoughts, and no, the thoughts you're having are more, I really have to figure this out. This is really a complicated thing. So you use a really fine nib, or how do you decide what pen you're going to use?
So I tend to pair
Okay.
my nib. So I'll write with usually one narrow nib,
Okay,
and one broad nib. So in here I've got an extra fine on one side.
yeah.
And when I flip it over and I write on the reverse side, it's been ground by Mark Backus.
Okay,
to a medium. So it kind of gives me both, and so
so it's fine on the top side and medium on the lower side.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy talk. I mean, that's almost the reverse of what you'd expect.
Right. And so what it lets me do is when I'm making notes. So like if I'm taking notes,
Yeah.
I can have a broader line to highlight the ideas or the questions that I'm thinking about, and the narrower line lets me fit more in.
Okay. But
That's
you're right. You write you write your notes. You write your notes broadly, and then finish. Then you edit with the thinner.
so the I label my ideas as I'm going through.
I
So
see.
if it's my thinking, what I'll do is I'll write out my idea, and then as I think it through, I'll think it through in a narrower nib because I can fit more
Yeah.
into the page without having to flip.
Yeah. It's just
Um,
it's curious that you. I mean, normally a pen like this, here's the Parker 51. It has a broader nib here, and I flip it over, and it's going to be finer automatically. Almost every pen will do this
yeah,
because of well, it's easier to show with a regular nib because this you press down and the nib spreads. When you do it upside down, you can't press down. It's only going to get narrower because of the way the nib is shaped. So I would think that any pen you buy off the shelf would have a thick side and a thin side
right.
automatically. And you decided for some reason to, to make it right. So you're right with it upside down initially, and then you turn it right side up and then write your broad letters. That's crazy talk, but I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and remember, part of how I got into this was I know that with me and how I work, once I can get 20 or 30 minutes of concentrated, focused thinking and writing and
Yeah.
drafting under my belt, I'm good for a morning session of drafting a manuscript for a paper or whatever it is I'm writing. But I need that first half hour. And so being able to sit down and do something a little odd with
Okay.
this, this is my medium line.
Uh,
This is my
broad line.
extra fine line. So medium, extra fine.
Okay.
Will get me that 20 minutes because it's fun, it's interesting, it's different. So that's kind of how I think through when I'm writing for myself. Like there's an idea I'm trying to play through. I've had much better luck explaining. Much better luck with journaling. For me, I pick one moment in time from that day, and I unpack that moment in time. So
Okay.
the 3 or 4 sentence description of what happened, the play-by-play, that might be in the medium, and then I'll flip the pen over and I'll write in more detailed notes, unpacking different parts of what happened. I'm an
Okay.
analytic mind.
Okay. And what, but you're doing that all with just one pen. Do you ever unpack with a series of pens?
Oh, totally. I kind of pulled out an example of it. So I was reading an article by David Super, and it's on like constitutional law, what have you, and because that's kind of what I do. My note-taking system when I'm reading something and trying to understand it better is 2 colors.
Okay.
And so I usually do like a black or a gray, and those are my notes on what the author thinks.
Okay.
And so that's straight summary.
Okay.
And then I pick a different accent color. Sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's whatever I happen to have in a pen. And that's my commentary or my thinking. Like this reminds me of this other essay I was reading, or I love to see a resource on this, or I should reach out to this person. Whatever it is that comes to mind, that's what I put here, kind of like the journaling version of it. And so, let's see, I kind of keep going through.
Well, this is
and I'll swap colors.
This is fascinating. I love the logic that you're bringing to your journaling, and it sort of almost makes me, I don't know why I suddenly thought of this, but it reminds me of a furniture maker applying the little parquet design. You're using different kinds of colors of wood to make this decorative surface on this table, or whatever it might be, or a mosaicist or something about these little tiny parts that look different, which will then create this larger, fuller understanding of something. You must love looking at, I like old books, and I love seeing, I don't have that many old books that have this other than ones I had when I was in school, but I love looking at books with marginalia in it, and illuminated manuscripts where some monk, after the thing was done, he writes in his beautiful script, in the gaps that are available, and it's just delightful to see. And then you've got the marginalia of the marginalia and the footnotes and the different handwriting. It's a delight, and that's what your notebooks reminded me of.
That's a huge compliment. We're of the same heart. I love looking at that stuff. I actually have when Instagram introduced the save folders, where you
Okay.
can save posts and you can create separate folders so you can keep them
Yeah.
thematically organized. One of the first folders I made I called it Commonplace Notebooks. And whenever I come across a picture of someone from the late 1800s in their commonplace notebook,
Mm-hmm.
it goes in there. I love looking at that stuff and seeing
Oh, cool.
how people process and
Yeah.
render searchable, because that's the big thing for me is
Yeah.
whether I'm journaling, like when I'm journaling, it's my post from last night, like my entry. So I started with this broad nib just because it felt like fun, and then
Okay.
I wrote this in the morning,
Yeah.
and then later in the afternoon I just switched colors.
Okay.
Kind of like if you ever read Dracula, the way that it's like entry 1 for the day, later that day.
Oh yeah. No. No. You must like Lawrence Stern's Tristram Shandy too, I would think.
I haven't read it. I haven't
Oh,
read it, but give me a
you
minute. I'm gonna write it
get
down.
right down. Get it right down. It's Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, and it was one of the very first novels, I guess. I mean, that isn't true. That Lady Murasaki's Tale of Genji was the first, but it's early, 17 something or rather, I think, and it's Lawrence Stern, the author, goes off on one tangent and another, and he stops. He'll stop in the middle of a chapter because he ran out of ink. Oh, I don't have any more ink, and then it just stops. It's like he never goes back to that fucking story.
Yeah.
My favorite. Let me just finish. My favorite
Please.
book, actually, it talks about his the hero of the story is named Tristram Shandy, and he's talking about his life. And the first half of the book, and it's like 600 pages long or something, 400 pages maybe. The first half of the book, he's talking about the night he was conceived. For the first half of the book. And then when the second book was published, then he's already an adult. So we miss everything, except he's going off on tangents. And he talks about his uncle Toby, who was quite smitten by the widow Wadman who lived next door to the Shandy family. And he said, he starts to describe this woman and he realizes he can't do it justice. So he says, "Gentle reader, call for pen and ink. Here's paper ready to your hand." And there's a blank piece of paper in the book for you to write. Write her description as most like your mistress and as least like your wife, or some little sort of fun way he did it. And then, but put your heart into it. And then it's blank. And then you turn the page. And the next printed thing is, "Was ever anything in nature so sweet, so exquisite. How could my uncle resist? So that's asking for marginalia right there in the middle. I think you'd really like it. It's just it's a fun book. You just
I'm gonna
have to
check it out. Thanks for the recommendation.
get stuck in the 1700s, so in terms of the flowery language, but you can do that.
It's a different kind of storytelling. Yeah. In terms of pacing.
Melissa Smith is in the room here. I don't know if you can see the comments. Melissa Smith is a journal keeper as well, journal writer, and there's a couple of them here that are very interesting. And she, like you, has mainly modern pens. I just sent her a flexible nibbed Eversharp Skyline and an Esterbrook. She ended up finding 2 Esterbrook nibs somewhere, or 3, and I said, well, I have an Esterbrook here that I can send you, because you can't take the nibs out, you have to screw them in and stuff. So anyway, she says this is all fascinating. Thank you guys. So we're providing information for them, but I really like the idea of your shifting gears. It's like you're in a very high performance sports car when you're in your journal keeping thing. You're in first gear for this, using this pen, and then you switch to second, and then you go downshift to first again, and you're sort of, it's a very tactile. That's not the word I want. It's like eating crunchy home fries. There's something very crunchy about it. It's very tactile, I guess, seeing these things change.
Right.
Does your handwriting change other than getting smaller and thinner, or do you?
So it depends on what I'm writing.
Okay.
If I'm patient enough, there's some writing tasks where I need to slow myself down. So I'll actually pull myself out of writing in an app or like Word or something like that and force myself to do a draft by hand. And I find that when I write with a small, like a narrower nib, extra fine, something like that, it forces me to slow down so I don't catch the paper.
I see.
And that keeps me from getting out too far ahead of myself in my thinking.
Oh, cool. That's
the broader nibs facilitate writing really quickly. So like if I'm going to a meeting and I know that there are 2 or 3 people at that meeting that are going to talk, do most of the talking. They're not going to be me. I'm going to bring a broad nib because I can write really quickly. I don't have to worry about it.
There's some people. There's another person that follows me, Marilyn, and Marilyn likes smooth pens. They have to be smooth for her. And a lot of people go to pen shows and they will take a perfectly good pen and they'll bring it over to someone's table and have them grind it down. And I want to kill them. Because they're taking the tooth out of the nib. The tooth is so the sound the pen makes on the paper, the sharpness of the very fine nib is really important for your driving of it. When I have a pen that has a really ball-shaped nib, usually a wide ball-shaped nib, I really have a hard time controlling it because it just wants to slide all over the place. So it's funny
you share that, because what's coming to mind for me is in December, a good friend of mine had a Lamy 2000, a modern, like Bauhaus-ish a European pen, and I haven't owned one. It's not my aesthetic. They're lovely, they're beautiful. It's just not for me. And he lent it to me. I said, write with it. It's a fine, so it's kind of in your wheelhouse. I like extra fine and fine. That's where I go because I like the pencil-like feedback that you were talking about. And I wasn't always sure I was on the paper. It was so smooth. It just wasn't for me. So I'm with you 100% on it.
It is. it's interesting when you have a pen that almost feels like it is magically hovering over the paper, and sometimes that can be fun. But I prefer to have some bite to the nib paper interface. It helps me stay on the straight and narrow that I want. If they're too smooth, I find it too slippery. It's like drawing with an iPad pencil on an iPad. It's just too slippery a surface, and I always overshoot my mark. So with these things, with the Apple Pencil and my iPad, if I have to do really delicate, exacting work, I'll put a piece of tracing paper on the surface. It works through it. I can see what I'm doing, but it gives me a little bit of feedback, so I don't do that. And so far, we're having lots of fun. Does Melissa or anyone else in the room have a question for the two experts? Let's see if anyone does. I don't know. You probably can't see the comments using StreamYard, but if you have the YouTube thing open, you can read them there, maybe.
Yeah, I've got them. I've got them open. Kind of multitasking side by side here.
Okay, good. So there are a couple of journal people here, and I think it would be fun now that we've gotten along pretty well, I think, and understand where we're coming from and how you do what you do. I think it might be interesting to maybe invite, not today, but maybe some scheduled thing where you and I and maybe one or two other people can talk about the journaling experience and how that works for each of you.
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
Because you're saying things that are quite different from the other three journal people that I've been talking to a lot about. Some are right on. They're like in lockstep and they say exactly the same things, just slightly differently. And other people, there's one journal person who loves smooth pens, and I think it would be fun to have you two in the same room together and see who wins. And
well, that's part of what makes journaling a fun use of my time. Is so like my friends and I will do virtual cafe nights.
Yeah.
Since we can't all get together in person, and we'll all just do our hobbies. Some of us paint nails, some of us journal, and out of the ones who journal, we all do it very differently. One of my friends, he's more of a sketcher. He thinks visually, and I need to write to think.
Okay.
And so he and I, we could be reading the same book. We did this a couple months ago, and we'll think through what we were like, what just happened in the book. But my journal entry, which brought me joy, is not his journal entry. His journal entry is this cool sketch and take on the character, and mine is more thinking through in writing. I find that really cool to pick people's brains, kind of like what you invited me to do today, and just get into how people exist in the world.
Does he or this other person, the sketcher, does he use fountain pens too, or not?
So I'm a bit of a pen enabler.
I see. So he does now.
And he does now.
Okay,
So this past holiday season, they got into. He and his wife each got their first iPad.
Okay. Good.
Like they had a Pilot. What is it? Not a Cupertino, the Metropolitan, the big brass number. It was like $15-20, and they've had those for years. They never really got into using them. Mm-hmm. They were worried they'd be messing. So now they both have a couple TWSBI Egos.
Okay. Are these people that you see physically face to face, or is this all?
So these are people who live local to me. So under normal circumstances, absolutely.
Well, one of the things that I enjoy having pen pimps for me. So you might, if I send you 3 or 4 pens someday, it would be fun for you to also share them with these guys because, again, the fine, flexible nibs of the vintage pens and the flow that they have, and even the feel of them. These pens, you would find these. They would find these quite lightweight compared to the metal ones, and they might be quite thin compared to the metal ones. And um, it may take them a while to get used to them, or maybe they won't like them at all because they feel lightweight. But I I see that there's a real big difference in so many ways with modern pens than old ones. One of the things that you often see is the threads and the section and the barrel on older pens are essentially all the same diameter. But on modern pens, there's usually this big step down, this cliff, that your finger falls off of, and you can either hold it down on the section by the point, in which case your back of your fingers hit this sharp edge, or you can hold it further back. But I like the idea of when I'm drawing, especially where I'm moving my hand up and down, and it's relatively a smooth transition between those the length of the barrel down to the point, and that's something that I imagine you could get used to and like, but I find it really annoying because it just drives me crazy.
Right.
Uh, but again, I don't, if that's all I knew, I would probably miss having that lump in the mashed potatoes. I need to have that flaw in the Navajo rug or whatever. It wouldn't work for me. But so they're fascinating. But if you want to be my pen pimp, you can do that too with respect to them.
I will try my best to tempt you with a few modern pens.
Okay.
I find it's with the step down and what have you. I'm trying to still get
Yeah.
the framing down.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's a step down right there.
my a few of my friends have very traditional, proper um, grips,
Yeah.
and I don't. So I like my thumb kind of carries over
I see.
when I write,
Okay.
and it's from years of writing with a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And
Ballpoint pen.
right, and so I didn't have. It was never part of the curriculum as I was growing up how to hold a pen, how to write with it. You just kind of had to figure it out. It was part of that hidden curriculum of what you had to figure out how to do
Yes.
to navigate school. And those pens with the really big steps can be comfortable. I'm trying to think of a pen that has an awkward step. Faber-Castell has an Ondoro, and it's a pen. You look at it, like that is going to be the most uncomfortable writing experience.
Mm.
But you put it in your hand, and it's actually kind of comfortable for
Yeah.
me because of how my thumb comes over, kind of like
Yeah.
a gorilla grip.
Yeah.
And my friend Shannon, who has a lovely, like very formal, like traditional finger on top to
Yeah.
write, which is most of her movement with her elbow.
Mhm.
She can't, like,
She
there's no joy in that pen for her.
It's like wearing shoes that are too tight or something. One's too tight and one is loose and keeps falling off. So
Right.
it's there's and I just find that annoying. So when your Esterbrook and your Vacuumatic don't have that step. But you don't see the difference because of the way you hold the pen kind of like you're holding a steak to pound through Dracula's heart, which which you don't,
Yeah.
you're
I'm
ready to do that emergency tracheotomy with that pen. You don't have to do that. You hold it gently.
Yeah, I'm a bit like it's gonna run away if I let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I love the Vacuumatic.
uh,
It's this lovely, rounded, fine nib, and the aesthetically, I like it. If it's on the desk and it has ink in it, I find myself reaching for it because it has that like stacked look
the
to
the
it.
the horizontal, longitudinal lines.
Right, right. And I just there's something appealing about that for me. I like to I like to have all my books in a 90-degree angle on the desk,
Of course,
and it appeals to my sense of over organizing.
yeah. No, I think that it's. I would have imagined your books all at a 90-degree angle. That fits exactly with my based on your journal keeping. It's like handwriting analysis. There is something to it. I can't tell whether you're an axe murderer underneath, but you can tell whether someone is somewhat organized or disorganized based on how they write. And um, the fact that you use different color inks and they mean different things to you uh, in your editing processes. If your book were were printed, if your journals were printed, I'm sure that the editor would say we need to use a narrower font for this section.
It would be
You
so
know,
expensive for them to print.
well, it's very. I once read, or many times I've read plays by George Bernard Shaw, and there was, how sometimes in printed books back in the olden days, meaning 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where they make the left and right justification correct. And to do that, they sometimes have to space the letters of a word out a little bit more, or the spaces between words a little bit wider. And I thought, why the fuck did they do it this way for George Bernard Shaw with this one word? And it just like jumped off the page at me because they didn't have to space it out the way they did, but every copy I saw of that play had that word spaced out that way. So I think it was the word should or shan't. It might have been shan't, and it might have been spelled SHA''N''T. And it was almost like S space A S space H space A. So it was really stretched out, but that was the way it was done in all versions of that play that I saw printed, because it was something that he evidently asked for. And I thought that was really fun. So if they could do that for George Bernard Shaw, they could use 2 different typefaces or more for you. Whether they'd use different color inks, that's another story. But
There's hope for me yet.
I think the logic of it is really, really fun. We've gone on for 1 hour and 3 minutes, and it seems like just 10 minutes we've been having so much fun.
This has been a lot of fun. Yeah.
But I want to do this some more with you, and I'm going to try to think of, I'm going to have some of the other journal people that usually are here, and I don't know where they are, but I will send them the link to this and say, do you want to do a 3 or 4 way with JP here, and we can all talk about journaling together. And so you're a educator and working toward your PhD, or you've done that already?
Still working.
Okay, so you're not a doctor yet. You're just a master, and but you're an educator. So you're in the academic world. One of the journal keepers is from Canada, and he is a translator of languages. and one is a guy from Brussels who is originally from Austria, and he journals in a certain way. And another guy is from Ohio. Where are you from originally? What Midwestern state?
California.
Oh,
Well, I'm originally from California.
okay.
I spent a good chunk of years out in Ohio.
Okay. Well, this guy's from Ohio, and he is a journal keeper who is not an academic, and this is essentially a personal diary where he may not even look back to what he wrote two days ago or 2 years ago. It's just a way for him to, by recording this information, he solidifies it in his brain. You know, sometimes it's like digesting thoughts is by writing them down. You're helping them work through their issues, whatever they may be. There's another guy from Texas who's a journal keeper who, when he does look back to his previous things, he says, "What kind of crazy person was this?" So there are many different ways of journaling, but they all love doing it with a fountain pen. So they're not going to be as analytical as you, as organized as you are, but I think that they are going to be just as interesting for you to talk to about how
For sure.
you do this. You, Ohio, I'm a Michiganer, and I cannot endorse Ohio. Thank you, Melissa, for your
The rivalry.
now
Because I was right in the OSU Valley too, so that was right in the heart of, I guess, the enemy
the enemy.
for Melissa.
Yeah. So Melissa, what sort of, if you could write in 10 words, what kind of journaling do you do? Melissa joined me once online, face to face, and maybe we can have her join our little band too. But I'm going to try to be more like a little matchmaker, a yenta, with with people that I think, because if you get more than 4 people, 3 people, 2 people is great, because they're both of the images are big and you can, you know, show the pens up close and stuff. When there's 3 people, we just get narrower and sort of cropped even more, but it works that way. When 4 people, then it divides it into 4, and it's just a little harder to keep people straight, who's saying what, especially if they're aiming down at their pens rather than their stuff. So shit, I'm late. Frederick is also a journal keeper. He, to a degree, 8 words. She does notes for my stories, then my stories. So that's okay, good. And Frederick is a historian. I'll call him that, a historian and a sort of reenactor. I'm going to call him that too, because he enjoys creating what looked to be real. If he was doing what he was doing in World War One, they would line him up on the side of a building and shoot him, because he's essentially creating forgeries of documentation from the World War One era, which he likes. But he says he does 3 different kinds of journaling. And Frederick, of the people that watch me generally, Frederick is probably the closest to me in terms of pen collecting. He mainly likes older pens. He has 3,000 of the damn things. Not as many as I have.
Find your joy. Find your joy.
But many pens, but he does 3 different kinds of journaling. And what are those 3 kinds?
Or is he going to save that for the next last paper?
Well, I just want
There's
to
a reveal.
I'm just curious to know what they are, and then we can say our goodbyes. But I just wanted to see, Frederick, would you like to join us? You want to join in, just to so JP can see how a 3-way works, a ménage, écrit de 3, a writing of 3. I hope you don't mind. My channel often goes right into the gutter, and we like it there. We wallow there, but we respect each other's. For the most part, we can be kind of catty sometimes. Frederick, would you like
Yeah,
to
I
come?
love it. It sounds like from what it's pronounced
Yeah.
Friedrich. Frederick, it sounds like he's got an analytic mode and a more creative mode. Um,
Well, I think some of his journals might be actual forging of maybe he counts that as a journal where he actually creates documentation that looks like it was made in 1910 using papers and inks that look realistic. But I don't know if that's part of his what he thinks of his journaling as being. Maybe journaling are more uh, personal diaries as one, and work or professional something or other as another. But so, Frederick, come and join us for just a second. Frederick is,
yes, I've got just from the comments. I have different notebooks for different kinds of thinking. Similar.
nice.
I kind of have to separate them, or they get muddied for me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I
think this is a great idea, Pierre,
have,
to,
way
to pull a
many,
bunch of us together and we can
yeah, and Duke it,
show our own.
you can duke it up. Um, the I have many sketchbooks. I don't think I've ever finished any single one of them. I just grab any one randomly and open to any random page, and I have a great time doing that. Okay, here's Frederick. Add to stream. Friedrich. Hello.
Hello.
This is
Hopefully
Jake.
my appearance isn't too scary.
No, we
Look here.
You're used to
I'll
it?
meet you.
our
I'll meet you halfway.
COVIDian fashion will not go down in
Good,
history
good.
as a high point. It'll be right next to the 70s with that polyester.
Oh God, no! Anything but that in the early '80s. No
we're
more
not.
wide shoulders with those stupid ass skinny ties and belts. And no,
No, you don't.
once was enough. Once.
My father was in the clothing business for years, and he had these two spiral bound fashion books he got that I have in Boston, and one of them has a young man wearing. I think you can actually call these things slacks because they're not trousers. They're not pants, but they're slacks, and they were rather tight, but they had sort of bell-bottomy things down at the bottom, and they were maybe this much herringbone pattern, big herringbone, houndstooth pattern, and then below that was the equal amount of fringe, and then back to the herringbone, and it was white cotton fringe. So you would sort of jiggle and shimmy as you walk down the street. And
Is the descriptor for that groovy? Is that the
groovy
right?
would be
Yeah.
So what are the three journals you do, Friedrich?
Well, I keep a personal one to organize for like mental health and keep rodeoed for my father because
That's the thickest one.
yeah, believe it or not, yes, that is that I go through the most of those.
I see.
Because I do 24/7 caregiving for my father as well,
Yeah.
on top of everything else. So I have so many things going at one. But like for the translating and research, that's all things that people bring to me. That's my work journal.
Okay.
That's where I get paid.
Okay.
And then as far as analysis of historical errors, that's what I do for fun.
Okay.
I'll watch films or go through books or various other things. And when I find something that I go, oh, this is glaringly, horribly wrong, into the book it goes. And I usually contact the author or the filmmaker or whatever. And I go,
Flowers didn't exist like that. But
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, yeah.
watch a period movie with Rob Morrison, and when some guy with lapels comes on the screen, you just better make sure that you're not anywhere between him and the TV, because you're going to get brained by a book
See,
or a object.
I'm pretty much the same way. And everybody goes, "Can you just watch the movie?" And I was like, "No, this wrecked it. You know, this guy is in Titanic and he's got nose pads on his glasses. No, this is not right. No, there should be saddle bridge glasses. No. You know, and somebody's going, really, out of everything to pick up in that moment, you've got to worry about nose pads on somebody's friggin' glasses in a 15-second clip of a waiter." And I'm like, yes, exactly. Because it's wrong, you know.
There's a story of Neil deGrasse Tyson sending a letter in saying, the sky is wrong. We know the date and the location of this. You got the night sky wrong. You can look this up and put it in. And when they redid the movie, they sent him his own copy and they fixed the sky. Writing in.
Well, for a couple of years, I corresponded back and forth with a doctor that wrote a 3-volume set on researching German uniforms for the First World War and right before. And I collect original manuals and translate them for people. And we corresponded back and forth. And finally, he told me, he said, look, he said, Friedrich, I would love to put all the information in there. He said, but I can't. He's like, my publishers just won't let me do it. He said, I've given the gist of it. If they want to go further. I said, yeah. I said, but your books aren't made like a Velvet Elvis. You're already past the gist of it. Whoever's buying your books at 250 euros a volume already has a severe interest in the period and really wants the information.
Yeah.
Let's not just give them one sentence of it. Can we give them the whole paragraph?
Yeah.
So they know the exact rule of XYZ? No. We're just going to give them the first sentence and leave everything else. So it created a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
So, of course, I went back and started to shit fit in certain circles and went and published the whole page out of that manual and went, here's the paragraph, here's the translation, do what you want with it. Which some people really like me, and
but
some people really fucking hate me.
Well,
there's no gray area.
So, yeah. We love you, Friedrich, and
Good.
We love you for exactly that reason. Now, I have a question, though, for you.
Sure.
Do you find, because you have 3,000 pens, do you find when you're writing the mental health blog, diaries, do you use a certain kind of pen that is easier for you to get through that ink? And
I tend to use things like Parker 51s or modern pens.
Okay.
Because they don't flex, they're no muss, they're no fuss, and I don't have to think. They just are.
Yeah.
If I get anything that's what I like in a pen, then I start to doodle and fuck around.
Yeah.
And I get nothing done then.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it's counterproductive. Yeah.
You kind of have like separate shelves of like the pens that are my helping me to work pens and the pens that are.
Yes. Yeah. Being Germanic, yes. I'm the opposite of Peer. Peer is organized in a Peer way, and I've got things inventoried with tags and drawers and manifests, and everything has its place and everything in its place. So like Mitchell the other day was like, well, what about XYZ? And I was like, oh, you mean a hatchet filler? And within 30 seconds, he had a picture on his phone. And he was like, how the hell did you do that? I was like, because I know where my hatchet fillers are. Yeah.
Hatchet fillers are a very rare old kind of pen where the lever, they're the love child of, you might not understand this either, but Frederick will. They're a hatchet filler is the love child of a lever filling pen and a coin filler. You
Yeah.
think that works?
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
coin is the lump that you use to press down. So
They're quite ugly. They
Okay.
really are inefficient.
Yeah.
There's no real honest to God spring back to them.
No.
But they were a way around a patent,
Yeah.
and it did the trick for the time period. But yeah, I like to keep things separate. The journals are separated. Each has their own shelf in a bookcase, and I keep them. Except the mental health ones, usually after a period of time, I purge them and they get burnt in an old-fashioned metal trash bin.
An old-fashioned book burning.
Yes, yeah, a little bit of German book burning, you know.
Along with the Thomas Mann and the Kant and everything else, we just have a little book burning here.
Yeah, what was it? Heinrich Heine said about men that burn books.
Oh, they'll later on they'll burn bodies. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
My friend Matt made a stained glass window of that. I'll have to send you a picture of it when I get back to Boston.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So Frederick, do you know Tristram Shandy's The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy by Lawrence Stern? Do you know that book? I suggested it to JP. I think he would get a kick out of it.
Yes,
So,
I think he would. And they actually did a decent job. If you
of the movie, they did a movie of it.
The movie is decent as well. Yeah, but read the book first.
Yeah, the book is just so much about words and writing and reading. The art of reading. You know, having the book in your hand and the words and the way he made the chapters work, like a sentence chapter. I don't know, how did they do that in a movie? You know, those are things that I wonder how that would work.
It was just like an opening and a closing scene, and you see him like sit in the director's chair, and all he does is just change his profile and looks at the camera, and you just get this facial expression, and then it switches to another angle.
Okay.
It works.
So the actor that played Tristram Shandy sometimes sits in the director's chair.
Correct.
Oh my God! I've never seen the movie, but it sounds perfect. It sounds perfect.
Yeah. He's directing his own.
He's
movie. Directing his own Tristram Shandy. He is Tristram Shandy, but he's directing his own film. It's brilliant.
Oh, it sounds like it's really, really would be good. Who directed it?
Oh shit!
Tristram Shandy.
I don't know. I could go in the other room and grab it off the shelf.
You don't have to do. I'll look it up later. I just was wondering.
Yeah, that's another thing I collect is DVDs.
Okay.
I scared the bejesus out of Canada. He's like, "Oh, you collect DVDs?" And I sent him a few photos. He's like, "Those are organized by alphabetical order and genre, aren't they?" I said, "Yes." He says, "That's scary."
Yeah.
My DVDs are in alphabetical order, so books on my bookshelf.
Just as scary. And Canada, the person we're talking about is the translator, journal keeper, as well. So again, he's only been on here once, but it was just his voice, and I don't know why he was shy about showing his. I've seen his face, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I just don't know why he didn't want to show here. So again, I'm gonna start being matchmaker, Frederick, where I'm gonna pull people specifically in to talk about specific things.
Good. Yeah.
We'll still have our gutter writhing around and
maybe with the gutter tavernesque talk, maybe that's a good like once a week on the weekends. But maybe like 3 times a week or whatever, that's when you could do your Yenta thing or whatever. It would make more sense that way then.
And I'm waiting very eagerly for Canada and Brussels to meet face to face on this thing, because they almost were singing a duet, because individually to me they were saying exactly the right things.
They're very similar. Yes.
And
I think I couldn't believe it.
And JP and Canada, I think, would really have a lot to talk about. And
yes.
And Mitch, and Canada are getting along like a house on fire. There's all sorts of.
I was waiting for those two to get a marriage license. I mean,
Well,
it's kind of scary. Yeah.
I don't think we're good. I don't think they're going to go that far. But Mitch continually reminds us that he's heterosexual.
Yes.
But anyway, it's a fun little party that I have here, and I'm going to be a little bit more specific about who I invite. And speaking of that, we'll end with this, JP. I have this old guest book in Boston, and I was looking through it with people online here and looking at the different kinds of handwriting. And it was a book from 1907 to 1957, I think. And it was fun to see the antiquated names and the antiquated handwriting and the more modern sloppy ballpoint handwriting. Anyway, it got me to think of asking people, my guests here, who they would like to invite to dinner. If you, JP, could invite 8 people including yourself, or 6 people including yourself, to dinner, who would they be? And they don't have to be living, and they don't have to be able to speak with each other, to each other. They all know the same language, whatever that language is. Who would your 8 people be? You don't have to answer now, but that's something to think about. It's just, it's fun. Marilyn wanted to invite people that she either wanted to hug or slap in the face, punch in the face,
Yeah.
And Schiavello, Frederick's boyfriend, wanted to invite all of the first ladies, recent first ladies, and all of the president's mistresses together at the dinner party. So we had Monica Lewinsky and Mrs. Clinton, and you had Stormy Daniels and Mrs. And
provide plexiglass shields to hide behind.
For Frederick at one end of the table and Schiavello at the other end, and they just watch the food fight. And so it's really interesting.
That's a good method. I think that's
it's really a fun way to go. Some people they invite people that are all kind of the same. They're all musicians, they're all writers. And other people mix it way up, and it's really sort of cool. So that's your homework, JP, for the next time we meet.
Got it.
Okay, but you also have Tristram Shandy, and I forget what else. You had something you were going to show me or tell me too. So, so we'll figure. You've got your homework.
Started.
Your homework, your homework notebook. Okay.
Outstanding. Good. Yeah, see? He's already paying attention, Pierre.
Yes. So, Frederick, it was good seeing you here.
Yes.
Lovely meeting you.
Really nice meeting you finally.
Nice meeting you as well. I hope to see you on a regular basis.
I could tell by your conversation with Andrew from England that you were going to enjoy some of the people here in this conversation, so this will be fun. So, okay, well, you all be good. It's time for me now to take off my pajamas. I'll wait till I turn the camera off and put on some actual street clothes, and we'll get on to our day. But thank you very much, JP and Frederick.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll catch up with you all later.
Okay, very good. Bye-bye.
Bye.